Hello and welcome to another learning module in the AWS and Red Seal course. This lesson will guide us through the following preparation requirements for working with an Amazon machine image. We'll start by establishing a key pair for authorization, and then the lesson will take us through how to set up an AMI by accessing the Amazon Marketplace and acquiring the Red Seal software solution necessary for this process, and then how to work through the steps in the AWS console wizard, and finally by associating an Elastic IP address with an instance. To get started launching a virtual machine, we need to look within the AWS services, under the Compute group, and access the Elastic Compute Cloud, or EC2. Inside the EC2 dashboard, our initial status shows us no resources used within our choice of region. Our plan involves creating an instance with Red Seal Solution Software, or AMI. Creating an instance requires some preparation. First, we need a key pair, a set of security credentials consisting of a private key and public key we will use to prove our identity whenever we connect to an instance. We'll begin this process by first selecting key pairs from the left navigation panel. We need a new pair, so we should navigate across the screen to the upper right corner to click the button. In the Create Key Pair form, we want to enter a relevant name to locate later. Then, we plan to use the PPK file to set up PuTTY to help pass the credentials for login. After we finish our name entry and file format selection, we can click the Create Key Pair button. While AWS processed this new key pair, it also downloaded it automatically to our computers. If we look back at our navigation panel, we should select the Instances option to begin creating an instance. Within the Resources frame, we see the new key pair we created. We should select the Launch Instance button from this frame or the left navigation panel. As the Instances area opens, we need to navigate to the upper right for the button labeled Launch Instances. The action started up a wizard which guides us through 7 steps. Our first step involves choosing an Amazon machine image, or AMI. AWS defines this as a template that contains the software configuration, operating system, application server, and applications required to launch an instance. Red Seal provides one within the AWS Marketplace. We want to narrow the options to what we need by searching. We begin by entering Red Seal. In our example, we can select it from the pre-populated suggestions. Our initial search effort did not produce the desired result, so let's check the search filters for any possible limitation. Here's one, Region. So we can move the option from Current Region to All. Although our search now yields Red Seal's AMI, we also note a message for us to change our region setting. To do a region change, we must navigate upward to the AWS banner where we find the current region. By selecting the down arrow, AWS displays a list of options from which we can select a region not listed in the earlier message regarding unavailable regions. A new region changes the wizard, and we must start at step 1 again. Begin by clicking the search bar. Enter or select Red Seal, and follow the directions to locate it within the AWS Marketplace. Red Seal's AWS Solution Software appears on our screen for us to choose the Select button. The selection opens a window with details and pricing related to the launch of a virtual server from a Red Seal AMI. Clicking the Continue button moves us to Step 2, or choosing an instance type. This window shows us quite a number of options. We filter by all instance families. If we look at the Red Seal Installation and Administration Guide, we see that Red Seal recommends the R4 instance type. After making the filter selection, we can now choose between the two recommendations. For our example deployment, we want a best performance goal. So we select the option and then we choose the next step. As we move through each of these steps, we can look down at the button options, and they include a review and launch button highlighted in blue. However, we want to ensure we either meet or review all configuration possibilities. In step 3, we can start reviewing each opportunity, and we may want to check any one of these drop-down entries like the network or public IP. In fact, let's change the public IP to the enable option. After we finish checking or adjusting any of the instance details, we can move on to adding storage by clicking Next. Each column bears a small information icon, and when it's clicked, it shows us details regarding the entries. We do not need to make any changes to storage for this launch, so we can move on to tags by clicking the Next button. Tags help us find instances, especially when a console holds multiple instances. To create a new one, click the Add Tag button, and then enter a simple but relevant name for the tag and any other name entries. AWS displays other options to complete, but we can now move forward with Next, Configure Security Group. Within this step, we need to look through the existing firewall rules to determine how we want to allow access or traffic in our instance. If we want to add a rule, we start by clicking the Add Rule button, and then choosing the type of rule by selecting the down arrow next to the Rules Type column. The installation and administration guide lists the ports Redseal uses. Many of the ports listed came preset, but we can see at least one that we need to add. As we scroll through our choices, we want to look for Custom TCP Rule, and then select it. Next, we need to set a port range. Our admin guide provides us with 10443. For the source, we can just start entering 0 and either continue typing the string or select from the auto-populated historical entry. Now that we added a rule, it completes the 6 steps of our wizard. We are ready to click the Review and Launch button. AWS and Redseal populated the review screen with 2 warnings. If we want to go back and check our security group rules, we can select the link shown. When we look through this screen, we can make changes, add more rules, or verify our choices with our organization's policies about network traffic. Then we can return to the review screen by clicking the Review and Launch button again. Back here, we can move through this screen and look over the choices we've made. Then, when we're absolutely confident, we can select the Launch button. A window appears requesting a key pair association. We need to select the Create a New Key Pair dropdown. This gives us an option to choose an existing key pair. AWS finds the key pair we created earlier. If the console contains more than one key pair, we will use the down arrow to select the correct one. At this point, we want to acknowledge this connection by checking the box. Once the box is checked, we can now click the Launch Instance button. AWS initiates the launch. The confirmation screen shows us messages that says that AWS is processing our request. One thing we can do while we wait is view the usage instructions. This note tells us to install a license and start up the server process. We also see a reminder about checking the security groups we set in our AMI launch wizard. After we read the note, we can go back to check on the status of our launch. The status screen provides us a link to view launch log, but to access the instance again, we want to return to the AWS console dashboard by clicking the logo. And then we can use the Recently Viewed Services area to select the EC2 link. Under Resources, we now see all of our efforts displayed, a key pair, volume, instance, and one that's running. As we return to the left navigation panel, we can select the Instances link and view our newly created instance initializing. We also look deeper into the status by selecting the Instance State drop-down on the top right. We do not see a Start Instance option active yet, but we make note that this menu supplies ways to stop, reboot, hibernate, and terminate an instance. These actions all support cost-saving measures in AWS. We recommend reading the AWS documentation for further details on each of these options. Another way to view the instance involves moving the screen expanding tool to see additional information. Each sub-tab located in this area of the screen supports additional details about this instance. As we move around each panel, it populates the data regarding the usage of the instance. We keep moving around each panel and then return to the Details sub-tab. Let's navigate up and give the console a quick refresh. And now we finally see our status verifying that we passed all the checks and the instance moved into running. Now that we launched our EC2 instance, we need to set up a connection to it. We plan to use PuTTY. The PuTTY, or P-U-T-T-Y configuration window, provides a means to create and save the SSH connection type. We start by entering the host name using a command line interface, or CLI admin, followed by the located at symbol, and then the IP address. We'll copy it from the instance and then pass back to the IP address field where we paste it. Next, we need to name the session and save it. Afterward, we want to access the SSH category and expand it, and then pick the auth level. We need to right-click it, which puts us in the SSH window, where we might browse for the PPK or key pair file we saved as part of our preparation to create an instance. With the file attached, we navigate to the session and click it so we can save the changes we made. We want to select our new save session and click the Open button. As the connection processes, we receive a security alert. After reviewing the alert, we want to select the Yes button, which initializes the connection. We can now run a status all command and see our processes shown as running. We completed everything we need to do, so close the window. Return to our instance details. Our next task takes us to the instance's IP address. We may want to allocate an elastic IP address for this instance. To start this effort, we need to look on the left navigation panel and then select Elastic IPs from the Network and Security area. On its screen, we need to select the Allocate Elastic IPs button on the top right corner. We'll choose from some of these settings and options, but for our purpose, we can just click the Allocate button. With the allocation completed successfully, we need to view our next action by using the menu at the top right. From the options, we want to select Associate Elastic IP Address. And now we need to browse for the instance we just created. We also need to pick the private IP address. With these settings complete, we may now select the Associate button. Our process completed, and we can see the new IP association. Let's refresh our console and then return to our instances area. Our instance now shows the elastic IP we allocated and associated to this instance. If we select it, we could navigate to the Details sub-tab and click the address link. This action takes us to a summary of this elastic IP address. We should return to our dashboard and finish out this lesson. Here's a quick review of what we covered. We started our lesson by forming a key pair within AWS so we could connect it to our instance. Then we worked through the 7-step process to create and run an instance. When we acquired the IP address for our instance, we established an SSH connection using PuTTY, and finally we allocated an elastic IP and associated it with our instance. Thank you for watching this module. Keep checking in Red Seal University for more training.